This video is sponsored by Yahaha. Ever wondered what it's like to develop video games? Looking at Sonic Frontiers development, it's definitely no easy task. It can take years to build something that's even playable for a playtest, But now you can build something much faster with less effort. And as you can see, you can make your own creation by choosing your own template and triggering the components in playtest mode. Here's an example of me doing just that. With Yahaha, anyone can create and publish their virtual experiences without any coding, creating experience, or server knowledge needed. It's a brand new user-generated content creation platform for 3D multiplayer interactive experiences. Simply use the components of smart assets in your Yahaha studio to make your dream games, and once you make those games, you can share them with your friends. Yahaha has a social and fun online multiplayer mode where you can play a game simultaneously in one template or invite friends and hang out with them. You can also interact and meet new friends at any time in countless expansive 3D spaces. There's plenty hours of fun you can have just by playing your haul of all the different things that have been created by a variety of different creators. So click the link in the description below and join Yahaha's early access now for free and become a game developer today. Alright guys, so it's been a pretty dry week lately. SEGA must have been pissed off from the EGX leak because we haven't gotten any Sonic Frontiers news and gameplay ever since, except for the whole soap shoes thing, Sonic with the soap shoes that you can unlock when you subscribe to the newsletter. I subscribe because I want that. I will be playing the soap shoes day one, but when I do my walkthrough, do you guys want to see that? When I play Sonic Frontiers, do you want to see Sonic with the soap shoes? Or you don't care and you would rather see Sonic as regular shoes? Let me know. But I got a lot of stuff to talk about. Just a couple things in the conversation I had with my insider about why Sonic Frontiers game design is the way it is and the criticism. How it can be a double-edged sword sometimes and if it's a good thing or bad thing. And I also want to talk a bit about Shadow. But before I do, be sure to smash that like button, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's see if we can get to 100k subs before the year is out. But alright, I know many of you were wondering why we didn't see Shadow the Hedgehog in Sonic Frontiers. Now, I was almost certain we'd see him, especially after Sonic Forces, I thought he would at least have his own segment like episode Shadow DLC. Granted, we still might get that when Sonic Frontiers DLC starts rolling next year in 2023, but nothing's confirmed now. As of now, we just know Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Knuckles will be in the game. Well, the fact is, it's actually very hard to put Shadow in everything because of Sega's restrictions and mandates. I always said that if you don't know what to do with Shadow, if you're just going to make him an edgelord and stuff, you might as well not put him in the game or whatever project you're working on at all, because all you're going to do is piss off Sonic fans, especially piss off the Shadow fans, and you're not going to please anyone. Shadow was okay-ish in Sonic Forces. His voice direction was better. Kirk Thornton did a better job with Shadow. He was still the same Shadow. I mean, they tried to give him a little bit of purpose with the whole episode Shadow. He was like inadvertently the creation of Infinite, kind of like how he indirectly caused the creation of Mephiles in Sonic 06, but it was actually done better in Sonic 06 than it was in Sonic Forces. So yeah, but other than that, Shadow hasn't been interesting since Sonic 06. As far as his story, that's where his arc completely ended, and ever since then he's just been an edgelord boy. Well, this article, it came out a couple weeks ago. It actually goes in depth a bit about Shadow and why he isn't allowed in a lot of things. It's from The Gamer. So Shadow isn't allowed to make jokes according to Sonic writers. Sega sends Sonic writers so many notes and restrictions when they want to include Shadow that it's not even worth it. In recent years, Sonic fans have noticed a curious lack of Shadow. In both the games and the recent Sonic Boom show, the fan favorite Hedgehog has had very little screen time, and when he does appear, many are disappointed to see him reduced to an edgelord, despite having previously been shown to care for others. Well, now it looks like we know why. According to Sonic writers, Sega is way too overprotective of Shadow. That doesn't come as a surprise to any of us Sonic fans. Creatives hoping to use Shadow in their games, shows, and comics apparently have to adhere to strict rules on how he is allowed to act, leading some to feel that it's simply not worth the hassle. Frustratingly, one of these rules even dictates that Shadow isn't allowed to make jokes, explaining why he's so edgy in recent appearances. To be honest, I don't remember Shadow even making jokes in Sonic Adventure 2 or Sonic 06. I mean, he might be ironically funny, but I've never like cackled listening to Shadow or anything like that. Now, this confirmation comes from Ian Flynn, a writer on the comics who is also working on Sonic Frontiers. On Twitter, he shared an extract from an interview for Megavisions with Sonic Boom writers Alan Denton and Greg Hahn, going into the difficulties they faced with Shadow. Writing for Shadow was a challenge in itself, says Denton. SEGA did not consider him a comedy character. They told us we could use him, but he was not to be making any jokes. So to work around that, the joke became the very fact that Shadow is completely humorless, so edgy all the time. I mean, they could get away with that in Sonic Boom because Sonic Boom was like, you know, meta humor. Every character was a caricature of itself. Sonic was like the wisecracking cool guy. Knuckles was the dumbass. Tails was the nerd. Amy was like the headstrong girl power boss. Styx was the conspiracy theorist. Now here's a tweet that Ian Flynn quote retweeted. It says, Shadow was a character that was very protected by SEGA. They were reluctant to let us use him very much. And when we did use him, he came with so many notes and restrictions that it was easier to not use him. That's why he wasn't on the show as much as fans would have wanted. I think he was only in Sonic Boom twice. Yeah, even worse, Shadow wasn't the only character this applied to. The writers admit they much preferred using their own original characters, because even a cameo from Vector the Crocodile or Big the Cat would require layers of clearance. It would have taken ages to get approved, says Hans. It wasn't worth it, hence why there's only Shadow, Metal Sonic, and Vector the Crocodile in a handful of episodes. Seemingly confirming this to be the case, Flynn quote retweeted the interview, writing quote retweeted without comment. Flynn has also previously indicated that the writing mandates make it so Sonic isn't allowed to cry, so it seems SEGA is pretty strict across the board. Yeah, we already knew that. For those of you who just dip in and out of the Sonic series, you may have only known Shadow as the hateful doom and gloom counterpart to the Blue Blur. However, Shadow has previously been shown to be a good hog at heart, even in his first appearance. His story in Sonic Adventure 2 ends with him sacrificing himself to save humanity, keeping his promise to his friend Maria. On top of this, he has been shown to have a softer side, saving Cream the Rabbit when asked to, so clearly not being completely apathetic. I forgot where that was. Was that in Sonic X or the Archie comics? I don't remember. With any luck, we'll see this side of Shadow again one day, just don't expect him to be cracking jokes anytime soon. Now, as we all know, Shadow will be in Sonic Prime. I wonder what it took for Wildbrain to get, Shadow to be in the show, and I wonder how he's going to be portrayed. I feel like he's going to be the same edgelord, just with a tiny bit amount of depth, as much as they can do with the mandates. Because, like, if Shadow is barely touched on in the IDW comics, what makes us think he's going to be touched on a lot more in Sonic Prime, But yeah, Shadow's been in every Sonic show since his appearance. He was in Sonic X, Sonic Boom, and now he'll be in Sonic Prime. I do hope he's written better in Sonic Prime though, but I doubt it. Alright, now on to the Sonic Frontiers game itself. Now the criticism. Now, as we all know, the game has been criticized a lot during its playtesting. Kishimoto said it was good. It was what they needed, what they were looking for when they were playtesting the game several times throughout the past 4 to 5 years. And the criticism is what helped shape the game what it is today. And a lot of people have been positive about Sonic Frontiers, but there's also been a good handful of critics that have been a little meh or iffy or just straight out negative on Sonic Frontiers. It is what it is. So I really want to analyze the criticisms of this game. Did it really work out in Sonic Frontiers' favor besides the physics? Now there's this 4chan post I want to read because it actually brings something really interesting that I discussed with my insider. Now this person says, I find it interesting that all the praise Frontiers has gotten is specifically tied to either Sonic's handling or the combat. Nobody really praises the general map design, or the cyberspace stages, of course, definitely not the cyberspace, or the mini games, or the open world platforming segments, or the puzzles, etc. It reminds me a lot of games like Skyrim, where people largely praise the game based off their initial impressions, but then realize that after an hour or two, they've already seen literally everything the game has to offer, and that a lot of the actual content on offer is pretty bland. So yeah, that kind of worries me because I was talking with my insider. He's been following the production of Sonic Frontiers a lot more extensively than any of us Sonic tubers that are covering it have. So he knows things that go on the inside and out. So he does have some worries for this game, and they're actually valid. But he tells me Frontiers looks rough. People are just caught up in the hype. I told him, the cyberspace looks hella rough, but the open world looks promising. Looks fun, and honestly, that's the biggest compliment I can give a Sonic game now. Fun. Then he goes on to further elaborate. He says, the open world looks rough too. All of the platforming takes place on rails and floating platforms. None of it takes place on the actual terrain. It's why people kept complaining about the strange clutter in the air. And then I replied, well, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing to me, just something Sega should evolve with in future games, but they still look fun. But yeah, in future games, the platform definitely needs to take place on the ground more. And he says, it means they shoehorned platforming in after they already designed the environment due to poor player feedback. It doesn't look natural because it's not part of the environment, but they wanted to try and fix it while it's already too late. It looks like a strange mess of ideas. I told him, oh yeah, exactly. And of course, he knows about Kishimoto having the game repeatedly playtested. And at first, it was just a regular open world bland Sonic game, and it received a lot of harsh criticism. You know, especially the early 4chan leaks. So all that platforming stuff we see in the midair was added in later as they received the criticism. And that's not rushing at all. I wouldn't call that lazy. That's definitely an interesting way of going about it. To me, it looks fun. We definitely have to understand Sega's point of view. Now, some people always criticize how there was a lack of platforming in the marketing of Sonic Frontiers until like the last minute when people would explore the upper areas in the demos and they will find out, wow, this game actually is pretty platform heavy in the sky, which is not what they showed because, you know, Sonic Frontiers is made to market to appeal to the casuals, and they're going to show the open world terrain. They're not going to focus so much about what's going on above Sonic's head, you know? That's why it looked like this game doesn't have much platforming. There is platforming, it's just above you. So that's the reason why there's platforming in the air a lot. And I personally don't see all the air platforming as a bad thing, but I can understand why others, especially insiders who follow the development of this game, do see it as a bad thing. Because it doesn't look natural to the environment. I remember the early memes of Sonic Frontiers when we first saw gameplay. People were showing like the background of like, you know, your typical Windows desktop background with a bunch of lines and rails in the sky. And they're like, this is basically Sonic Frontiers level design in a nutshell. And to be honest, that's not far from the truth even today. It just looks better, you know? So in future Sonic games, I like to see a more natural approach to the platforming and not have everything be in midair. So I want to see an evolution of this. This is Sega's first time, or Sonic Team's first time making an open world Sonic game. I need to see a progress to this. I don't want to see more of the same in the future. Mario Odyssey barely had random things in the sky. I remember every time I went in midair and it wasn't much. So yeah, maybe that's why the early critics who played the demos and Gamescom and all that gave negative impressions to the game, because they didn't really explore the stuff in the sky. They were just on the ground level and it must have gotten bland for them. Some of them, not all of them. You know, the average gamer doesn't care about platforming like that, but people who've played Sonic games and have known Sonic for platforming, they might have, you know, docked some points because of that. What do you guys think about all this? Let me know down in the comments below. But we finally have our answer as to why there's a bunch of stuff in the sky and why all the interesting parts of the islands are above Sonic. I'm going to 100% everything and I'm going to explore it, but you know, it is what it is. I'm not going to even act like and pretend that I know a lot about game design and I know how hard it is to design terrains. It's easier to add stuff in the sky than, you know, reworking the terrain and the foundations of the level. But yeah, that popping is a bit annoying though. It's a minor nitpick, but I wish they could like fade things in as Sonic's running like a lot of the Lego games do. I don't like that popping, but whatever. You know, there's so much going on in the sky. I don't even know how Sega can make everything fade in. It's going to pop in. That's just, it is what it is, you know. So long as it doesn't glitch out the game or lag the game, then I shouldn't complain too much. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this, about the whole criticisms. Do you still think the game is going to be exciting and that doesn't really matter? Or do you think that's a flaw in the game, but it's not going to hurt the game in a way? And how do you want open world Sonic games to be in the future? Also, what do you think about Shadow in general and his presence in Sonic projects? And do you think he's still going to be a DLC character in Frontiers? Also, Sonic Rebound Episode 6 is slated to come out in November. And Shadow obviously is going to be in that one. I know you've all waited nearly a year for that, but stay tuned for that. We are working very hard on that episode. And then after episode 6, next year will be episode 7, which will be the Whisper and Silver episode. Alright guys, that's all I got for now. So take care. And until next time, I'm out.